Some of you are going to respond and say, are you sure that's what the writers intended? And the only people who say that are people who aren't themselves creative writers. I actually started out, I wrote my first short story when I was 6, wrote my first novel when I was 11, and have written a lot of fiction, about 30 plays, half a dozen novels, and so on, lots of poetry. So Luke Skywalker has checked out of society. Huh! Isn't that interesting? He's a white male who's checked out of society. And we see this all over the place with white males, right? I mean, that they're not happy. Neither is Luke Skywalker happy. He's got this bitter, grizzled, half-homeless kind of determination to survive another day, but for no particular purpose other than to watch the slow extinguishing of his own possibilities and his own life. Destined to die on an abandoned, desolate rock in the middle of nowhere, no one even to bury his body. And this is true of a lot of white males, right? They're heavily in debt from terrible educations, they're living at home. There are endless diversity mandates in society, which means it's very, very hard for a white male to get a job, which means that white males kind of have to go into entrepreneurship, which has its ups and downs, of course. And there are jobs openly saying you basically, if you're a white male, you have no chance of getting this job. There is, of course, the men going their own way movement, or the MGTOW movement, where men are eschewing relations with women for fear of being preyed upon by a state that favors females vastly in the court system, family court system in particular. Massive amounts of unemployment. There is, of course, the opioid crisis that is striking white males particularly hard. And white males, for the first time in centuries, are seeing, and this is true of whites as a whole, are seeing the life expectancy decline. Original Alex, the Obi-Wan Kenobi character, did die out, but first of all sort of lived on and became more powerful, but he had the next generation. Whereas Luke Skywalker is dying out and there is no next generation. And that, of course, is the boomers, followed by the kids who aren't having children, the demographic decline among the whites that is happening in Europe and in North America. Whites, I think, are down to about 8% of the world's population, and that 8% is very top-heavy in terms of age. So in terms of childbearing age, white females are like maybe 2% or so of the world's population. There is danger of a quasi-extinction event in the not-too-distant future. It's sort of similar to what's going on in Japan, but with diversity and fewer robots. So there is no continuing of the line. And this destruction of the history that is occurring in the new Star Wars movie, Kylo Ren actually says it. You have to break with the past, kill it if you have to. And that happens. Luke Skywalker takes the most powerful symbol of the Jedi and just tosses it over his shoulder. And that is happening, of course, a lot. The whites are not allowed to have a history to be proud of, not allowed to have in-group preferences. The religion of the West must be burned. And this, of course, you see, like the tree and the Jedi texts get burned down, and it's the end of a lineage. It's the end of a history. It is the end of culture. Now, trade, of course, white skin and red underneath. Well, that's Caucasians, right? White skin and red underneath. And in that battle, Luke shows up, and it drove me kind of nuts that he was missing the gray in his beard, but then we sort of realized why. So Luke shows up, and then like every weapon in the known universe is aimed at destroying him. This is the hatred directed at white males. And of course, he's just a projection. He's not actually there. And so the fact that projection is really there, there's a lot of frustration out there in the world. This is why I talk about race and IQ, is that I want people to get along. I want people to understand and to have peace with the way that the world and its cultures are, because there's this incredible frustration out there in the world that other cultures are just not able to reproduce the former successes of white male culture, of European and North American culture. So there's this immense rage and frustration because race and IQ are not talked about, and it's not really fundamentally possible to reproduce a Jeffersonian democracy in Somalia, because Somalia has an average IQ, in the high 70s, low 80s, or something like that. I mean, just can't do it. But this increased diversity means decreased success. In fact, it's just one disaster after another for the rebels. And I'm not really sure, if diversity is such a strength, why, now that the Star Wars universe is more diverse, do the rebels keep losing? Well, because there's kind of a truth in that. If diversity is such a strength, then why do leftist academics never hire conservatives? Why do communist academics never hire free marketers from the Austrian school? Why do they never hire objectivists? Because they want unity in academia, university, of leftism, of communism. So they recognize, of course, that diversity is in no way a strength, which is why they relentlessly enforce it in academia, while at the same time relentlessly promoting it outside of academia. If diversity is such a strength of the free market, then why are communists constantly pushing diversity? Well, they push diversity because they know that diversity, like communism, is a failure. I mean, it may take us another couple of years to accept and absorb that and be able to talk about that more openly, but statistically, it's a failure.